And I want to go now to Bill Browder, longtime Putin critic. He's wanted in Russia, and the retired Army Lieutenant General Ben Hodges. And I appreciate both of you very much. Bill, so obviously we haven't seen Prigozhin since that armed rebellion 12 days ago. The part of the deal that was announced was he was going to Belarus. But Lukashenko says he's in St. Petersburg, maybe in Moscow. And we're seeing, but he's a free man. He can do whatever he wants. And I talked to him on the phone yesterday, even though they've raided his houses and taken everything out of it and are, humiliating him with all these wigs and everything else that they're parading around. What is going on here, Bill?
Well, I think first and foremost, he's committed the cardinal sin of making Putin look weak. Putin prides himself on being a strongman dictator, and Prigozhin basically just sliced that reputation in half by marching on Rostov. Nobody stood in his way. They were cheering him on, taking selfies with him, going on to Voronezh, and then getting within 2 hours of Moscow. He's kind of a folk hero in Russia, and he makes Putin look like a very weak man. And so what's going on right now is the Russians are in a state of apoplexy, Putin particularly, because he's been challenged. His entire sort of strongman image has been challenged. So Prigozhin surely doesn't want to be found right now. I can imagine that if they're doing all these movies and opening these criminal cases against him, they would love to kill him if they could get their hands on him. And so he's probably gone to ground. He's a very dangerous man. He has a whole army of mercenaries and people loyal to him.
Yes.
And what we're seeing right now is.
But you think he's gone to ground and he's alive in Russia?
Who knows? I mean, he has so many different ways. We saw the wigs, we saw the passports, we saw the cash. There was a helicopter, in his front yard. He's got all. I mean, this man is incredible in terms of the tools that he has to, evade capture. I mean, he's the most cold-blooded killer out there, and so he's not going to just allow himself to be handcuffed and carted away to Lubyanka, the FSB prison. No,
Right.
it's not. That's not going to happen. And so, everyone says, how much longer does he have to live? Well, he's got all these killers on his payroll. How much longer do these guys, the FSB, Putin himself, have to live with this type of scenario playing itself out?
I mean, General Hodges, it is incredible, and it is incredible what they're showing us, right? That he's nowhere to be found, and as they're raiding his houses and showing those wigs and those things. What does this say to you from a military perspective? Putin says the deal is, we're told, right? The deal is Prigozhin goes to Belarus. Belarus says, oh, he's not here. He's in Moscow or St. Petersburg, and he's completely MIA.
So three things, Aaron. First of all, how can anybody seriously consider negotiations with Russia and expect that they would live up to any agreement or that they'll be transparent in any way? I mean, the circus that we've been watching the last couple of weeks, tragic in that people are getting killed, but there are a lot of people that think that we should push Ukraine to negotiate with Russia. This is who you're negotiating with. Secondly, the kind of activities that we have seen here over the last several days, including when President Putin wilted, when he was pushed into a corner, he wilted and turned to Lukashenko, and they made this deal with Prigozhin, which obviously is not turning out like everybody thought, or like I thought anyhow. But that's what he did when he was put in a corner. So it did show weakness, exactly as Bill said. But also, finally, this is not what happens in an army that's confident that it's on the path to victory. So this really reflects uncertainty and lack of confidence in the government and in the army.
So, Bill, I want to play some more from that Lukashenko press conference where he took all those questions from journalists and our Matthew Chance. He said he spoke to Prigozhin yesterday, and then unprompted, he said this about Prigozhin's safety. Let me play that.
What will happen to Prigozhin next? Well, everything happens in life. But if you think that Putin is so malicious and vindictive that he will kill Prigozhin tomorrow, no, this will not happen.
All right, he brings it up out of the blue, so that's significant. Then he makes this claim of that will not happen. I mean, what do you read into that statement from Lukashenko?
Well, first of all of these guys, Lukashenko, Putin, Prigozhin, you can't believe a word that they say. I mean, they lie through their teeth. They lie openly. So you really can't interpret anything from that. I mean, what I would say is that this guy, Prigozhin, organized an armed rebellion to take out Putin. the normal reaction to that would be for Putin to arrest Prigozhin, bring him to Red Square, set up a guillotine, and chop his head off. The fact that he didn't do that is remarkable. The fact that they let him go somewhere, whether it's Belarus or somewhere else. I mean, just yesterday, they were when he was doing his raid, his rebellion, they raided his office and they seized $111 million of cash. And then, as I understand it, yesterday they returned the cash. It makes no sense. And so,
Yeah.
whatever they're saying, there's so much more to the story that we don't see on the surface. And you alluded to it earlier in the report that he's got 17 different countries, rebellions in Africa, where he's got mercenary operations, which is essentially the entire foreign policy of Russia and Africa that's under his command. And so he may be just too big to pick out. I don't know, but it doesn't make any sense on the surface, and therefore there's a lot of information that we don't know that they obviously use guiding their actions.
General Hodges, I want to ask you one thing crucial to the battlefield in addition to all of this, right, which could dramatically change all of it, and that is these cluster munitions. CNN's reporting the U.S. is expected to announce a new military package to Ukraine, which is going to finally include those cluster munitions, right? Highly controversial, banned by 100 countries, not by the United States or Russia, incidentally. They scatter small explosives around the target. So in a civilian area, it can cause unbelievable devastation. Ukraine says they need it to hit clumps of Russian soldiers, and that they've been saying this, since the very beginning. How significant is this if Ukraine gets these cluster munitions, the DPICM?
This will be a significant capability for Ukraine when you talk about employing them against Russian trenches. Particularly the Russian trenches, which, as we've all seen, do not have the overhead cover that you would expect from professional soldiers. So this kind of munition will be devastating against the Russians who are sitting in these trenches, which will help, obviously, with the breakthrough that Ukraine is trying to achieve. And they're also devastating against artillery. When the Ukrainians catch Russian artillery in a wood line somewhere, this munition will really cause problems for them. And fortunately, the United States has a couple of million of these rounds. And so it will help make up the deficiency in artillery ammunition. Unfortunately, it doesn't make up the deficiency in not providing the ATACMS.
No, it doesn't. But of course, President Zelensky was telling us it would be crucial, anything to close that artillery gap, as you point out, that they just don't have enough. All right. Thank you both so very much. I appreciate it.